Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Additions to the agenda tonight? You have any? Nope. Okay. The only thing that we're going to see different is our auditors are not here, but we will have a management letter to sign. When we get to that part of the agenda, I have no remarks tonight. Open public comments on agenda items only.
I have a public comment I would like to make, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Right. During a recent select board meeting, my role as town administrator was impugned by selected resources within the office of the treasurer of the town of Vernon. While many observers within the town organization have positioned recent developments as a personality clash, it's my responsibility to clarify for the good of all involved. The role of the town administrator is to help align the information flow from the stakeholders of this town and to support this governing body in its charge to make the best and most insightful decisions for the betterment of the town and the overall community. In connection with that responsibility, I have to work with elected and appointed officials and offices to collect, evaluate, analyze, and funnel information and other data to the select board for action and review. Issues uncovered with the pay-as-you-throw program are nothing short of a reflection of a weak process control environment and a lack of cooperation within the office of the elected treasurer. Instead of partnering cross-functionally and working together to create a better program outcome for the community, I've been attacked a number of times relating to many different items and issues. I've had the circumstances around my relationship with the treasurer's office distorted, and I for one can tell you it's not fair and it's not right. Obfuscation of half-truths cannot alleviate the need for accountability in this community, neither from those elected or appointed. I will continue to execute my duties and create a positive growth environment for the town of Vernon, and will continue to intellectually challenge information given to me in support of the board's work until such time as the board narrows my job responsibilities or relieves me from my position. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, now it's my turn. In response to the Assistant Treasurer's remarks on March 19th Select Board meeting, first I'd like to apologize to Michelle for allowing this personal attack to happen during a public meeting. The untrue and defamatory statements that were made both about the town administrator and myself should have been stopped and not allowed to be aired during a meeting. It is my responsibility as chair to ensure all of our employees are protected, and I failed in that during the evening of March 19th. For that, I apologize to you, Michelle. As a result of Kathy's statement, the board felt it necessary to contact the town attorney to review the assistant treasurer's statement to see if anything could be used against the town in a lawsuit due to the untruths and defamatory statements that were made. During the assistant treasurer's statement, she said I misled the board by saying money from the pay-as-you-throw account was unaccounted for. That is simply untrue, and there is accounted for money that we'll learn about tonight. We're going to fix it, and we're going to clean up the pay-as-you-throw account. It is also stated I showed animosity and pure hatred towards the treasurer during the February 26th meeting. When my statements and Kathy's were reviewed by the town attorney's staff, that was found to be untrue. And I quote, "We briefly reviewed the meeting of February 26, 2019, and did not observe the animosity and hatred that Kathy alleges that you or your board exhibited at that meeting. It appears to me that the board was trying to obtain clarification about an inconsistency in numbers about the pay-as-you-throw program," end quote. The assistant treasurer also alleged that I've repeatedly interfered with the running of the office, which is simply untrue. I have asked that the treasurer's office follow the wishes of the select board when decisions have been made. I'd like to read one more quote from our town attorney that I wholeheartedly agree with in regards to Kathy's statement. And I quote, "Regrettably, she has chosen a public forum to express hostile opinions about you, the board, and the town administrator. This is not collaborative and leads to a toxic and combative work environment that is not in the best interest of Vernon," end quote. This board will not tolerate the public defaming of another town employee or elected official, as it opens up our town to liabilities unnecessarily. We look forward to making a better work environment for all of our employees and elected officials to foster a collaborative team with the best interest of Vernon in mind. Thank you. All right, let's get right into it. Auditors are not here, but we have a management letter to sign.
I can sign it, I just need you to let me.
Okay.
So someone should make a motion.
Make a
No,
motion
should
that
go-
we sign. Go ahead.
I move that we sign the auditor's letter that you signed, that Michelle can sign, our auditors. Is it a contract? Or
It's a management letter, you've already
Oh,
agreed to the
management letter.
contract over 3
Okay.
years, so this is just the next year.
okay.
A second.
Moved and seconded to have Michelle sign the management letter for this upcoming year for the auditors. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Approval of regular meeting minutes from March 19, 2019.
Yeah, we got some problems.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Wait, on page 2, did you get that? It's W-A-I-V-E.
Oh, yeah.
W-A-I-V-E. It's not to waive, it's to waive. You have a duplicate application on page 4 on the motion for the job description for town constables.
It's two of the same
Yep.
stretch. Duplicate. I think there's one kind of above the constable job description line and one below. It's the same motion. So the one above
Oh,
that title should
Yeah.
go. This one?
I wonder that one, big one.
And here,
Can I do
I can't.
One was, it's the same
understand
thing.
this. Okay, relocation of emergency, town office, fire department, or try to keep the building it's in. There's kind of, I don't know, some incomplete sentences there. I'm not understanding what that says. Yeah, and then period, then the, if that starts another sentence. Should be capitalized. Fire station, period, capital B, both will have to have a lot of updates to do this, so that's another sentence. You don't see where.
Discuss with
I can tell you that, I can look up.
fire station, period.
Both.
And then old business going on, house discussion of the planning commission should be a period. Then the Friends of Vernon hired a consultant.
It should be Vernon Center, it's the Friends of Vernon Center. That's the group, is officially the Friends of Vernon Center. Hired a consultant.
And,
Just listen to what he said.
yes, and then just,
That's,
and we hired a consultant to look at costs and maintenance roof. I think you meant for the roof, of the roof.
Yep.
And then under media, the coefficient of dispersion should have was received after that. Clarity. That's all I have.
I move that we accept the minutes of March 19th as corrected.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the minutes of March 19th as corrected. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Bills and warrants.
Okay. I move that we approve payment of the following warrants. 19T, accounts payable, $15,186.39. 11S, payroll, $8,588.75. And 12S, payroll, $8,980.90.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the bills and warrants as read. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All set. Town office building cleaning. Come on up, Kevin. Buddy.
So, there had been a couple of comments about the condition of the lobby or just some cleanliness issues around here. And I truthfully didn't pay much attention to that until the weekend that we were here. And you were in and out in about 45 minutes that day. So I started looking around a little bit more, paying more attention to it, and have just noticed a lot of things that have not been done, not been cleaned, things that are clearly spelled out in your contract that just aren't happening. So I was curious to know what your reasoning for that is. Mainly, I'd like to know how many hours you put in a week for this cleaning.
For the cleaning itself, usually around 3 hours, maybe 3.5 hours, not including the collection of the trash on Wednesday nights or Thursday mornings.
And as part of that cleaning, what is it that you're doing?
Let's see. Vacuuming.
Does that vacuum work? Because I've been told by other people in this building that the vacuum is not working.
Yeah.
That it's not picking anything up, that
Well-
it just kind of blows it around, which is part of the concern that I have with the lobby, is that you can clearly see that the runners had been vacuumed, but everything is just off the carpets. It's not actually picking anything up.
Those things of big, pieces of salt and the gravel and stuff like that, vacuum's not really picking it up, no.
So,
Sometimes we bring our own. Works a little better, but
so if it's not working and it's just pushing it off to the floor, then that would lead me to believe that you would go and get a broom, clean that up, and then
and mop it.
Okay, so that's what's been happening?
I do I broom down here, usually upstairs I mop it.
Okay. And then what else happens?
Let's see. Vacuuming, mopping, emptying the trash, bathrooms, mop, toilet clean, sink clean, empty the trash, restock, toilet paper, soap, paper towels. Mop those floors. Move furniture out of the library. I dust, not every day, but I do dust. God. Wipe the dust bunnies out of the corners.
Do you?
Yeah,
Okay, so,
I don't see every dust bunny, but,
all right, well, so since this was brought to my attention, Sundays, I know that you guys come down. And generally I go to town, I see you guys are here, so I've been stopping in on my way back.
Okay.
I have plenty of pictures that would go against you telling me that the things that are in your contract, the things that you're saying you're doing are actually being completed. And part of it that really upset me was that the weekend prior to election day, when we opened this building to the entire town, we asked them to come out, we asked them to vote, that entryway by the old police station, down the stairs into there, it wasn't touched. There's still cobwebs, there's dead bugs, there's things that are still sitting on the windowsills. The stairs hadn't been swept, and this is where our residents coming into this building, the residents that are paying you for this service, and it's not being completed. So I could happily pull up the pictures and show them to you and ask you to reply to each of them. That's up to you if we'd like to get into that. But I'm just really curious. You're telling me that you spend 3 to 3.5 hours here a week. Cindy's usually with you.
Mhm.
Is Cindy covered under your insurance? Does she need to be covered under the insurance before I ask that question? If she's in here helping?
No, because I'm not being paid.
She's not an employee, she's not being paid.
It's kind of the same idea as when you painted the bathroom.
Volunteering?
Yeah.
Sure, except that
It's
somebody is
actually-
getting paid, and that's your husband, so that money is going into your house. So if he's here for 3.5 hours, you're lightening his load, you guys are still getting paid for that.
So I'll put a pause on both of these things, because I had a meeting with Wade from VLCT today and also our insurance provider that came down to visit us. She cannot work for you without having workers' compensation on her. So she can't be in here helping you without workers' compensation as a subcontractor. And I'm getting all that in writing from
Just wanted to
VLCT.
ask you how you guys could work in here without hot workers coming.
Because we are not employees of the town, we're elected officials,
Well,
huh?
I'm an elected official.
But you're also an employee of the town.
So are you get paid.
Okay, Cindy, you wanna argue with, if you wanna argue with VLCT, you can do that. I'm gonna have an email from VLCT that lays out
Just
everything
asking
for
a
you
question.
within a couple of days. I will forward it to you so you can read it,
Thank you.
because, I'm right, once again, because I just had this conversation a couple hours ago,
I was merely asking a
so,
question.
and I was merely responding to you.
Thank you.
So, no, she cannot work for you without workers' compensation, because she is working for you as a subcontracted employee. So, there's the end of that. She just can't be in the building doing garbage, doing all that kind of thing. Same thing with Michelle. She can't be in here after hours painting or putting up a mirror or any of that kind of thing. Jean can't either, actually, as an employee of the library. She cannot participate in hanging banners outside or anything like that as an employee of the town without having coverage. All of these things were discovered today during this meeting with Wade from VLCT. We as select board members can do that because we are considered volunteers in the eyes of the insurance company. Because we get paid so very little to do what we do, we are considered volunteers. So we can be in here hanging mirrors, painting, planting gardens, all those kind of things.
So, okay, she can't even hang up banners that have to do with the library?
If it's during her work hours, yes. She cannot come in and volunteer. There is no such thing as a volunteer when you're a town employee.
You can't volunteer for a job you're paid for.
Yes,
That's
and you
illegal.
you cannot work for someone else in this building without having working compensation put on you as an employee of the town. So, like I said, clear that up right now.
So getting back to this, I'm just gonna come right out and say it, Kevin. I don't for 1 second believe that you spent 3.5 hours in this building on a Sunday. I don't. I drive by here some days, I see you guys pulling in. I'm in a Price Chopper for an hour and a half max. I come back, you guys are already gone. So I'm not really sure when you're getting 153, what is it, 153.75 a week, something like that. 153.75 a week. I'm just not sure what you're doing. The registers upstairs, when we've been here, I've taken my finger and I've cleaned off just one section of it. to see if you would notice that. Same with the windows, the cutouts in the windows, same thing. Come back the next week, nothing has been touched, and it clearly states in your contract, dust, wash walls, doors, heaters, windows, wash windows as needed, sweep, vacuum, mop floors, all of these things. There is, next to the door that goes out the back, there's a little desk that sits by the door. You know what I'm talking about. On the right-hand side, there's a little desk table type thing right there. There has been, since we came and did the bathrooms, there has been a little green, I don't know what it is. It still sits there. I was in this building earlier this afternoon. It is still there, which tells me that you are not sweeping, you are not mopping, and if you are doing either of those, you're not doing it up to any type of a standard that we would expect a contracted cleaner to uphold. That is all that I had. I would happily share pictures if anybody feels the need, but I don't think that it's necessary. We all spend enough time in this building.
Jeff, questions, comments, concerns? Sandy? Gene? Okay. I don't have anything either.
So at this point, I believe that, is this the end of the contract here? Or is there?
It's yearly unless we give him in
Yearly.
writing for 3 years.
I would like to make a motion that we put this contract back out to bid.
Second. Moved and seconded to put the cleaning contract back out to bid. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. I think that's it. Thank you. Animal control officer compensation. This is something I thought we had talked about, but when we went back into the minutes, we just didn't find it. Where we actually set a clear designation. So this is part of the, I know we talked about it. I did the same thing, but we went back in the minutes and looked and did not see where it actually set a compensation structure. And I don't know how that is because I'm in the same boat that you guys are, that I was just like, wait, where we did
I
this.
thought we did it, so.
I think you were gonna ask if you
Yeah, so as part of the constable's job description, which you have in your packet, there's Appendix A at the bottom, which gives a breakdown of possible compensation for that particular portion of the constable's job, new job description.
Chris, can I just get a clarification? Is this effective immediately or when you hire somebody else?
We have to give you written notices as according to your contract.
Yeah, I think it's 60 days.
I'm sorry, going back to that, I mean, I believe it ends in May, or is that July 1 that would end, right?
It ended technically 2 years ago with extension for 2 more, or a year ago with extension for 2 more years.
But each year is the July 1,
But,
correct? Or is
But
it?
we still need to give 60 days.
No, and that's fine. I'm just curious when,
It's at May. I didn't look at the dates on it.
Dates. I'm just having trouble finding dates. No. Proposal received by May 1st.
6/6, so it would end in June, I would guess.
Wasn't it after?
So it started in
You had a
June.
custodian until the end of that fiscal year, and then the start of the next one, it became a contracted service, right? July 1st. So it says- I just had a hard time finding dates on these here.
Are the dates?
term of the contract shall
Oh,
be
here we go.
from 7/1/17 to 6/30/18. So it would be July 1, correct?
Right.
Yes.
So,
With a 60-day notice.
yeah.
All set with that?
Yep.
Do you want to,
Roll back.
are we just gonna go till July 1?
We need to put it out for
Just
bid
do-
and then
just-
do our written notice and that kind of thing,
That's,
after
okay.
we put it out for bid.
I'll just-
If he's not re-awarded it.
And do you want the same RFP that we put out last time with new dates? Same scope of work?
Yes, same contract,
Okay.
same,
Can
Yeah.
we talk?
huh?
Can we talk?
Why not? I let everybody go out of order anyway, and that's what gets me in trouble.
I
Go
would
ahead.
just like to say, if you really want, like, floors mopped and stuff like that, you really have to give it some, I mean, I have somebody that comes to my house 3 hours one week and then, well, 4 hours one week, 3 hours another, every month. And you can't possibly mop floors and everything else in 3 hours. I mean, maybe you can, but it's not gonna be spotlessly clean like I want it.
Well, and that was really just the point of, is that it hasn't been happening. There isn't enough time and it hasn't been taking place,
All right,
so.
let's stop beating that horse. and
All right.
Well, I'm
move on.
just suggesting maybe you need to increase the hours.
That's not enough pay for.
No. No, it's a big building.
So animal control officer, is everybody happy with the layout in the appendix A?
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the job description in Appendix A as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the constable job description with the appendix A for compensation. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Self-governance, so there's this new little program that the state has come up with, that we got an email about, that allows us, in theory, to have more control of what happens in the town. So we wanted to kind of discuss that and see what that means for the town of Vernon. It's a pilot program where a few towns will be accepted into the program, to try it out. So Jeff's got a couple things to say about it. I think Patty, that's why you're here. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, so essentially, despite what the idea is when at town meeting, really as a town, a local government, we are not autonomous. All local governance power is derived from the state. The term is that municipalities are creatures of the state. So in a sense, the limit of local governance is what Montpelier allows us as a town to do. It's, in a sense, the opposite of the federal government and states. The federal government, ostensibly, the only powers that the federal government has is what is granted in the Constitution. All other powers are states' rights. The opposite is true for local municipalities in this state. Essentially, all power is derived from 180 legislators and the governor. My concern is, again, there's this illusion of direct democracy at the local level. That's exactly what it is, this illusion. Frankly, you know, we go to town meeting and, you know, we feel that as a town, we're participating in direct democracy. It's a farce. This state is one of the most centralized governments in this country. We have no, as residents, we have no ability to have a referendum on issues like other states do. It's well nigh impossible to amend the Vermont State Constitution from a local level. I feel that this board should support a resolution to support this pilot program towards self-governance. Because this bill is still going through the Senate, basically the legislature is not going to give up much power to local governments. But I do feel that this idea is worth something supporting. And so that's what I'd recommend as a board. We have a resolution to support this pilot program and not necessarily spend a lot of extra time seeing how we could fit into it. Because again, it remains to be seen how much the Senate in Montpelier is gonna gut this bill before possibly it becomes a law.
Chris, questions, comments, concerns? Sandy?
Yeah, you want to say something?
Yeah. Okay, you good?
Oh.
Okay. Gene? So, I got the same email that Jeff got, and I'm not sure why it doesn't go out to all select board members, because it came directly from VLCT, but, maybe you guys got it and I just didn't see you on the list, that's possible. But I agree with Jeff that this is something that we should look at as far as, you know, putting a resolution together. I think Michelle might have, you know, did an example one for us, already.
I did not have time to do that.
Oh, you didn't have time to do that? Okay. So, no big deal, one way or the other, we'll get it done. But, so we will work on putting a resolution together. I agree with Jeff in that respect, that we need to take a look at it. And as this gets further along in process, that we need to take a look how, if we try to become part of this pilot program, what are the things that we want to gain freedom from? What are the things that we want to do as a town that right now state laws and governance keeps us from being able to do it? I don't have that answer off the top of my head. And maybe there's nothing, and maybe it's still worth looking at, even if there is nothing, just so we can test it out and see what kind of cool stuff we can get away with. But
I'm not sure get
I'm-
away
I'm
with
kidding.
it, but yeah. I know,
I'm kidding.
But to see what rights that we deserve
Yes.
as a municipality.
100%. I was just kidding.
I know.
But, yeah, I agree with that. So I support Jeff's motion to do a resolution. So I second.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Patty changed her mind.
Patty, you want to say something now?
Yeah.
That's what you're here for. Come on up.
I don't need to come up.
Well, we have to see you on TV.
No, yeah,
Give
just
him
what
a
I want. I think Jeff is right in going down the road you're going at this point. Who knows what's gonna happen by the end of the session? So you could do a whole lot of work and research, and then the bill dies anyway. So I think a resolution is really important because it lets the legislature know how towns are thinking and what they would like to see. And, you know, we are a town still in amazing transition. We don't know what's gonna happen with the property across the street, but it would be nice if we had the power to decide our own fate instead of the state, or at least somewhat decide our fate. We're never gonna get it all because the state will never let us have it all, but at least be able to take some steps towards deciding who we are and what we wanna be in the future, so. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you.
So moved and seconded to support and write a resolution. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? So we will put that on the next agenda to sign that resolution. Very good. Mary Lynn, you're hiding from me, but I know you're there.
I'm not hiding, I'm right here.
I can't see you behind the
We're
big,
actually
tall
having fun back here.
CCTV you got. Overspend flag line item. So I remember this like it was yesterday. So can you come explain this to us, please? You have to come up front too. Patty had to come up, you gotta come up. It's just fair.
It's not.
So you can sit here next to me.
Yes.
So
That's better.
I put my like past brain on, which doesn't work for anything, about remembering what happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But we had this in the cemetery, we had this as a cemetery line item, right?
Right.
At one point,
Because the holding there.
and we put it in the select board, in the select board's budget at some point, right?
I think that's where it used to be. No,
Used to be a separate under Memorial Day
right.
committee.
And then,
But what do we do with it? Because I know we
I don't-
did something to change it.
I don't know. So I decided not to wait till the last minute to order flags while I was thinking about it the other day.
Okay,
I have to do things when I think about them.
yeah.
And then So I went to look for the money and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, it's because we didn't budget it.
This is why I couldn't find it. 'Cause so, and because we need to have money there for that, and if we need to get any more veteran markers,
Yeah.
we need to have,
So try
replace any
to help me remember, and maybe Cindy can help us as well, but we did something with that fund. We had it someplace, we moved it somewhere else because it was just smarter to have it there, and
see
then
that.
we never
see,
funded it.
There, in the cemetery thing, then it reminds me
Yeah.
that I need to do it.
But didn't we take it out of the cemetery fund? There was a reason why we did it.
You have a line item in the selectmen's budget that's called flags, but that is for the flags that fly on the poles. There's not enough money there
No,
for
it's not for
buying the
cemetery
flags
ones.
they need for the cemetery.
Yeah.
They need like $750.
No,
Yeah,
just
you
for
just,
the
you
Right.
just,
committee.
just for the committee. But
We
it was-
actually,
used to have a
didn't,
line
we
item
actually
for
used to
one
give
thing.
money to the memorial.
It was for the flags, Memorial
Yeah.
Day.
Do flags.
Okay.
So we just haven't.
Which is, no, it was moved into the cemetery.
So that, because Sandy and I would order them, so,
Oh, I know
That-
we've always
so-
done this, but I know we
Right.
did something with that line item for these, for the little flags, but I just don't know where we ended up housing
and I
that
didn't wanna
money.
just order them without knowing without the money being there and knowing where it was coming from. And now there's nothing budgeted for next year.
No, there
Either.
hasn't been anything budgeted for 2 years because we just forget about
Yeah.
this
How
for some
much-
reason.
How many do we have in,
I don't have any,
we don't have any, we're all out. Wonderful.
or not enough to say so.
Yep.
So essentially, we need $750 to overspend the flag line item, and then we need to
Remember to fund it.
remember to fund it and find where that money is supposed to be.
We'll decide now where you want it, because we'll make sure that it goes there in the worksheets next year.
If you put it in Memorial Day, then you know what the flags are for.
That's what it says on the line item in the cemetery. It says Memorial Day flag.
We're gonna do supplies in the cemeteries. Do you want it in the cemetery?
Will you remember that it's in the
cemetery
cemeteries and tell it, and when you do your budget, put it in there, Mary Lynn?
I'm sorry.
Will you remember, I'm gonna have to separate you two. Will you remember when budgets come around to budget that in your cemetery budget?
I wrote it in my town book,
Okay,
so I'll remember it then.
okay.
So
So-
we're gonna leave it
Highlighted
in
it.
cemeteries.
We wanna leave it in
That's where it's gonna
cemeteries?
live.
Yes, select board?
Because
Sounds
because
fine.
I was talking to Mary Lynn, and we were trying to figure out where I could put my notes.
Okay.
So what about this year?
This year we have
Cindy,
nothing.
good for,
It's-
leave it there in the
there's-
cemetery?
there's nothing in there.
As a line?
We'll just have to overspend the line item. like
No,
we
I mean
did
for
last-
going forward?
Going forward, yes.
Yeah, put it there
But
as a,
this year, when you buy them, we'll have to overspend the line item.
Right.
Like we did last year.
but I mean, we'll budget it in the, under
Yeah.
the cemetery going forward.
Okay, just remind us. We don't remember.
One, two, three, four, five.
Oh, come on.
against one.
How many budgets do we have to look at?
Do you know how many budgets I look at?
Don't make me cry, man. It's been a long night already.
I can make you cry.
Yeah, you probably could. You probably could. I'm kind of weak. So the flag line item, so we just need to make a motion to overspend that line item by $750.
So moved.
Okay.
You're quick.
Chris
So
moved, I
Chris moved,
seconded.
Sandy second. Moved and seconded to overspend the flag line item in the cemetery budget. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, there you go. We'll remember next year for the following year.
Okay,
I hope.
okay.
Thank you for doing that as well. Flex time policy.
Right before town meeting, you had reviewed and edited and approved this and asked me to send it to our town attorney, who's also crazy with the town meeting stuff. So since then, they've gotten it back. They made some minor changes to it, but it is essentially the same thing that you've already looked at, so.
I do have a question on number 5. If, like Cindy was without an assistant, and so there was no way she could use her flex time before December 31st, could we not put unless prior approval from the Board of Selectmen or the Select Board? Only because that could happen again to an elected official.
But whatever you think. I mean, this is your policy.
I'm not really probably supposed to talk about
Oh.
this. Or should I go under the table now?
We're gonna talk about that
Push you
next.
around?
It's not financial, and it doesn't affect you any more than it does other employees, so you really don't have,
Right.
the conflict
Officials.
of interest.
Oh, okay, thank you for the clarification.
If it's equal affecting, unless prior approval by the select board.
That was my opinion.
So, people that have flex time right now, or have comp time, whatever we call it, by the end of this year, you're gonna just dismiss it all?
Just elected officials.
One issue I have with that is the fact that, when VY announced their closing, previous select boards kind of took a lot away from the town employees, including any kind of disability, and some other benefits too. You know, having some flex time available if you did need to be out on disability is, I just feel like if somebody earned that time, which for some was because of very short staffing in their offices, at this point, it shouldn't just all be taken away right now.
Wouldn't be. You have to the end of the year to utilize what they have. And we're just started April.
What's the highest amount of flex time hours on the books right now, an individual?
300 and 300, don't think.
300 some hours, 300.
So that's what, almost 8 weeks?
And to expect them to use 8 weeks up
Yeah.
in 1 year.
Well, the issue is if it never goes away, it never goes away, period. You can carry those 8 weeks for the rest of your life and add on to them. And I'll disagree with you that our town employees don't receive some of the best benefits and the best pay in all surrounding towns. Because they sure as heck do. Do a comparison of any particular position. Oh, with the exception of Michelle's, she's actually the lowest paid town administrator, town manager in the entire state. But outside of that,
Most towns do have benefits that were taken away
sure.
from the employees.
Now, a lot of towns still do full insurance.
Yep. And most towns don't have the number of hours that we have. In the assistants, in the treasurer's office, in the town clerk's office, and any office, they don't have as many hours as we have to cover their day-to-day work. Which we've beaten that horse to death over the last 2 years as well. That's just a reality. This just simply makes sense, in my opinion.
But if they are making a concerted effort, whoever person A is, to make a concerted effort to use their 300 hours, could they not approach the board if they use like 150 of them this year and have that carried over? That's why, if we have unless prior approval.
Yeah, if we add on your amendment, they could absolutely come to the board and ask for that extension. You lead yourself down a very slippery slope, because what do you tell the next person that has 50 hours of flex time that they want to carry over, and they have worked just as hard as that person previously that asked you for it? And what do you tell them? So do we grant every single person by setting a precedent with one? Because you have to. If you allow one, you have to allow all.
I think our employees are worth us taking some slippery slides. They're not taking it with them when they leave here, they're not getting paid for it, so if they quit on December 29th, they don't get anything. If they quit in, so I just think they're worth it. Because they did lose a lot of what they had. And if you go to other places, have really good benefits, and we do have good benefits, but, I don't know, I just think that,
We have good benefits, we have good pay, and we have the most amount of hours in any town office in this area. Chris, I meant to go around, but Chris?
I don't have anything. I'm leaning towards agreeing with Sandy on this.
To add the amendment to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that needs to be in there. I understand what you're saying about the slippery slope, but, I mean, there's gotta be a way that we can come up with some way that makes sense. If somebody has 8 weeks and somebody else has 1 week, and they can't figure out in 365 days how to burn up 1 week of flex time, that's not something that's going to be as hard of a decision. Or if somebody is trying to use up 8 weeks and they only get 6 weeks used up, I mean, that, they made an effort in that, and I think that we would have to recognize that when the time comes. So I don't see it as being quite as slippery a slope as you're saying, simply based on that. I mean, we would have to look at the amount of hours that are accrued on both sides of that.
Yeah, but the thing is that flex time isn't set. It can be accrued throughout the course of the year still. So the person that starts with 8 hours, 8 weeks, that person that starts with 1 week, that person with 8 weeks can work their way down to 4, and that person with 1 week can work their way up to 4. And then
But
you have
going
to
forward,
decide at the end of the year.
after we fix this kind of out of control problem that there is, and we get all of that brought back down, then nobody would have the chance to accrue 8 weeks again. We would never be back in that position. I can't see that anybody could accrue 8 weeks in a year's time. And then,
You wouldn't.
Right.
but-
Exactly.
but
So
if-
then by the time we get back to
But if you allow
the
to carry it over,
31st.
you will be.
I think it's definitely gonna be a case-by-case decision, and like Sandy pointed out, if something changes in an office, and the one person that remains is doing the work of 2 people, that's a different circumstance that needs to be considered. So I think that to have that opportunity to look at the situation and decide from there, I think it would become very clear what the decision should be when you look at each case.
Okay, Jeff?
Flex time. I guess I'm not really familiar with the whole concept of working more than 40 hours and getting anything back. I mean,
Yeah, we get that.
if you work 80 hours, you get paid for 80 hours. So again, my personal experience, I'm not really familiar with the concept. I think it's a bit draconian to disappear several hundred hours of flex time overnight. And probably, I understand the slippery slope, but it can be manageable. So in general, flex time, it says here, is earned at a rate of 1 hour for each hour worked in excess of 40 hours. Could it be a sliding scale of you get 1 hour for each? So in other words, if you work 45 hours, you get 5 hours of flex time. If you work 46 to 50 hours, those next 5 hours, half an hour flex time. No, can't do it?
I don't think
And
we-
so we can actually do whatever we want. Remember, this is for exempt employees. This is not for employees that are qualified for overtime pay.
I mean, it would be some.
There's no requirement for you to give any flex time. And a lot of places that have people on salary do not. This is a total benefit for the employees of this town. So there's no set, if we were offering comp time is another term, and that means if it's a non-exempt employee, then that you have to compensate an hour and a half, time and a half overtime in time rather than cash, but it still has to follow those overtime rules. So essentially, you can do whatever you want with this, but this is close to the practice that we've been doing. Comp time is offered to part-time employees, but that's not tracked the same way because they're working underneath elected officials that decide what their hours are in the office. But you can do whatever you want with this, because we don't have anything on the books right now.
Yeah, we've been offering this to employees with no stipulations and no policy on how this actually runs. And that's why we have people with 8 hours of comp time.
Well, as an employee, I can tell you that my budget only pays for X hours a week for me.
Mhm.
So that's where, after that point, I have it as flex time, because I'll often have a meeting on a Friday, or a workshop, or, you
Mhm.
know, and it's not real easy for me to not be in the library. So there are those weeks where it goes over. I mean, I'll try to come in later and try to be here just when we're open, but even doing that, there are times because of extra meetings or workshops that I end up more than my allotted hours for the week. And at that point, I accumulate them as flex time.
Yeah, and
So
don't
we're
get me
locked
wrong-
into our budget, you know?
Don't get me wrong, I do disagree with flex time. I don't think it should exist at all because it doesn't exist in the real world. Unfortunately, otherwise I'd have a ton within my business. I'm okay with offering it to the town employees. I'm not fighting that we should or should not have flex time. My thing is it should expire at the end of every year. You should be responsible enough for yourself to use the flex time that you have, because it is a benefit. It's not something that, you know, we should even be offering as a town. It's just something that we do out of our own good nature. And it's your responsibility to use your flex time in the appropriate amount of time. I understand that there's extenuating circumstances, but I can tell you that the first time we run into an employee that we don't extend their flex time to the next year, they will have grounds to sue us.
Can I just mention something? Just to clarify for everybody, the expiring was only for elected officials because you all had a concern about them leaving office if they didn't run again, if they didn't get elected again, then what would happen to their flex time? That's why this was added in the first place. This doesn't go to all employees, all other employees can roll it over.
And the flex time on the books now would be grandfathering going forward. Unless it was extenuating circumstances, we wouldn't
That's up
do prior approval.
to
That's just my perspective.
the board.
Let's say that again, Sandy.
That what's on the books right now should be grandfathered. And then going forward, December 31st is the day, the cutoff date. Unless an extenuating circumstances, say that Tim's assistant had a heart attack on November 1st, and he has a general election on November 6th, and he has to do all that stuff, and by the end of the year, there's no way he's gonna use up any flex time from November 1st to November 6th, and he'll be in there a good 60 hours a week. So that's an extenuating circumstance. But only the ones that have it on now would be grandfathered. You can't add.
But how long do you grandfather it then? Because if somebody has 3 weeks built up right now,
Mhm.
then it just never goes away.
I think you probably want to talk to them on a one-by-one basis and decide.
Again.
I mean, you could have over a several year basis, your maximum goes down for current officials.
Yeah,
Like I said, I don't really agree with making a couple hundred hours just disappear
No.
overnight. I mean, but some gradual reduction in the maximum for current employees, if they don't have, elected officials, excuse me, if they don't have 80 hours now, the points move.
right.
But if they get 100, 200, whatever,
Is there a lot of people in that situation? No. So that wouldn't affect highway or any of, just the elected officials, correct? That's
The
what you're just saying.
expiring?
The expiring is just the elected officials.
That was just the elected.
Talking about 2 people.
Yes.
Okay.
What are non-exempt or
How are
exempt employees? What are exempt?
Salaried. There's salary supervisory positions.
So Seth, Dave,
So in town, Tim, Cindy, Seth, Dave, myself, and you.
Really? I'm supposed to be salaried? Oh.
It's more than just being on salary, it's also the responsibility that you have. There's a litmus test for who is exempt.
so I would be in favor of grandfathering the current until the end of 2020. And if you have not used it by the end of 2020, you lose it. And we move on with the policy. That gives everybody almost 2 years to utilize the time that they have.
But how does that get affected when they add more flex time onto it? There's gotta be some,
Well, this is why I'm saying, just cut it off December 31st, because
And I
you
see what
have
you're
no
saying.
way to control this unless you put a hard deadline on it. It's uncontrollable unless you put a hard deadline on it.
Jeff, don't you put a limit onto the number of hours that you can accumulate? That, I mean, could roll over, you put a hard deadline now on what you have and you've gotta use it up or lose it, but you're gonna continue to accumulate. I mean, for example, the only example I know is like, in the military, we can accumulate, you get 30 days of leave a year. You can accumulate 60, well, you can accumulate a lot more than that, but you can accumulate 60 days. At the end of the fiscal year, if you have more than 59 days of leave on the books, you're gonna lose everything over 59, period, if you don't use them. Because you're encouraged to take that time off,
Sure.
which is what you should do. So if you come up with a number, anything over as of whatever date, anything over this much time, hours or whatever, at the end of whatever date you pick, you lose if you haven't used it. People should be able to plan, and I know there's always gonna be some, like somebody is sick in the hospital or whatever, there's always gonna be some exception to it, but for the most part, you should be able to plan into your schedule to be able to take an hour here, an hour there for time. It's called time management.
So what are we thinking?
I move we accept this with the, unless prior approval from the board, select board, to number 5. And we grandfather the 2 individuals right now, with a cutoff date of December 31st, 2020.
may I question that
Yes.
as far
Please
as,
do.
and I'm fine with the grandfather, but we do need to put something in there that they can't tack on another 80 to the 320 that's already there. So somehow we have to manage that,
So-
to make sure that that's not happening.
On December 31st, on January 1st, 2021, everybody's at 0.
Right, but the employees that we have now that are 300 and something hours,
Mhm.
if they rack up another 80 hours on,
They're still at 0 on January 1st, 2021.
They're gonna be able to continue to accrue
Yep.
in the meantime.
Fair enough.
But, you know, again, you run the risk of you keep accruing more and get over 500 hours or whatever, you're gonna run out of time.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Discussion, my concern about grandfathering anybody is opening us up to a lawsuit from someone that isn't grandfathered as of December 31st, 2019.
This is going on effective today.
I
So they're
understand
not-
that.
So they can't be grandfathered, they're grandfathered as of today. Grandfathering is for the person who has something before the law goes into effect.
I get that, but you're grandfathering two people, and there are how many employees that have
But it's
flex
only
time
elected
available to
officials,
them?
though.
But she
No,
said there's only
this-
2.
This particular portion of it is only directed at
So-
elected
I see
officials.
what you're saying.
So
I don't think we have anybody that's over 80 right now. Remember that only the elected officials you have expiring at all. Everybody else can carry over.
Right, that's what I was saying. But that would only leave 2 people in that
Okay.
possible situation.
I got you now.
I mean, if there's a big concern about possible lawsuits, table this thing and ask the town attorney.
No, I'm unclear, and now I'm clear
All right.
about that. So, any more discussion? We got a motion and a second. And can you repeat your motion, Sandy, please?
that we accept this as, with the addition of unless prior approval from the Board of Selectmen. We grandfather the 2 individuals, elected officials, until December 31st, 2020. On January 1st, 2021, everyone starts at 0.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Everyone starts at 0 on January 31st, or the elected?
The
officials?
elected official, she meant everyone as in the elected officials.
Just wanted to,
That's all part of
Under
the number
5.
5 then.
Number 5.
And we had the note on number 5 about being able to come to the select board.
Right.
okay, so you want me to send this to the town attorney to ask, just to make sure, okay.
Okay. Pay as you throw.
Should you put copies of spreadsheets in here? I'll try and find it. I couldn't find it. So let's go through this.
What is the status right now of Pay As You Throw?
Let's see.
What is the status right now of Pay As You Throw?
I checked the numbers right now, we're down 1,200.
We did have a lot of bag sales between the time we changed the price and the time the price actually went into effect. We had a lot of bag sales.
Imagine that. Right, can you take us through your spreadsheet, please, that's in question?
Sure. Well, Cindy had sent, the treasurer's office had sent a letter to the select board with a number of questions about the spreadsheet. So wanted to clarify for everybody that we're on the right track with the price for the pay-as-you-throw bags, because that was really the purpose of doing the spreadsheet, was not to question numbers from the treasurer's office in any way. The numbers all came from the treasurer's office. They are simply put in a format with, get the calculation done to figure out what the price of bags should or shouldn't be. So just to run you through a couple of the things in the treasurer's letter. As far as the extra funds, the extra $240 that came in at the end of the year, that is not included in the bags. The $1,631 on your spreadsheet that is taken out and the $1,391 are the difference between the total income that was reported on the spreadsheet that she gave, which I think I gave everybody another copy of these, and what was in the town report. Neither, those numbers are the number of bags sold and what the income should have been. So that is a favorable number. It is just not accounted for in bag sales. So one can assume those bags were not picked up by Triple T and charged for disposal. So therefore, that number was not included in the price of the bags and what it cost us to dispose of the bags, because they weren't attached to any bag sales. And adding the money that came in at the end of the year from the library would probably, it's just gonna make that number bigger. Does that make sense? Because this is the number of bags, that's all we concentrated on this spreadsheet. How many gallons of garbage did we have to pay to get rid of? And how much did we charge for them versus how much we should have charged? So that's, her first question was about that income. Not questioning that that income was there in any way, this spreadsheet doesn't do that. It just doesn't count that in our income for bags, right? And then the number of bags sold, that's kind of the same thing about what was deposited, that is not getting questioned in any way, shape, or form on this spreadsheet at all. That was the second problem, the second question. And then the third question was regarding an example based on the amount of rolls being sold at different prices. That's what we do. Our small bags sell for a different price than our large bags. Our small bags were actually selling a little more expensive. So when I did the spreadsheet, I moved the bag prices to the most common denominator, which was gallons. So how much were we charging per gallon? Which is how we came up with the bags sold. We were charged 11.1 cents. We charged 10.61 cents per gallon for the large bags and 16.67 cents per gallon for the small bags. So does that make sense? So that's how these numbers were derived. I did move everything down to pennies rather than dollars, as Kathy questioned at the last meeting, because decimal points were getting crazy large. So having 10 cents instead of 0.001067 was just getting easier for understanding the spreadsheet. Those numbers were getting a little crazy. So if you go to the bottom, there was a mix. So really I tried to give the select board two different scenarios. The first scenario takes into account, and I'm just looking at the 2017-18 side of this spreadsheet, takes into account the fact that we sold 78.48% of the bags with the large rolls, remember, selling at a different price, and 21.5% was the small bags. So considering that mix of the bags sold, what it cost us per roll to get rid of those bags
is marked there. So large bags was $20.18 per roll is what it cost us. That includes the production cost of the bag added into this bottom part piece and the disposal cost. Does that make sense? Okay, so that was one scenario. The other scenario, so that you could look at the $20.18 or the $14.79, and then underneath that is if you just calculated what I averaged up, it was 12.5 cents a gallon for us to get rid of. If you just went on the 12.5 cents and did not take into account the mixture that we sold that year, then we should have charged $21.93 per bag. So that's two different scenarios of what we should have charged to come up with what it cost us to get rid of those bags. Does that make sense? So I just wanted to make that clear that nothing that the treasurer's office sent was ever questioned in any way. This is simply calculating the price of bags. And I think that answers all of your questions in your letter, Cindy?
Well, when we were meeting on the 26th, there was a statement that there was some money not accounted for. So when we started deciphering the spreadsheet, that's what my point was in number 1 and number 2, was that we actually brought in more money than what according to the number of rolls we sold. We should have brought in 66,112.50, and we actually brought in 67,743.60. So I just was explaining that there was no money missing. All the money is accounted for.
I didn't say
there
there was
is,
money missing. If you go
there-
back to the tape, which I did, is I first said that there was money missing, and then I immediately, the next sentence out of my mouth was, sorry, it wasn't missing. And shake your head all you want, Kathy. Go look at BCTV. That's a beautiful thing about having these guys here.
Sorry.
So it was said and fixed immediately that we actually had an overabundance. So yes, that money is still unaccounted for. We
Yes,
do
I
have
do-
more
I
than
do
what we
know-
should, which is great.
do know-
But it's still
I
unaccounted
do
for
know a
because we
couple
don't
of
have bag
reasons.
sales to tie to it.
I do know a couple of reasons why we did have some overages, and that was because Guilford sold bags, and there was extra money, and we said, we got extra money, because based on what you have in inventory and what you sold, you've got more money, and they said, well, go ahead and, so we did.
Thank you very much.
I mean, they obviously sold a small bag at a large rate, or whatever, and nobody questioned it. Nobody ever came back and asked for it to correct it, and we said, you know, you have more money than you should have for what you're sold, and they were like, just go ahead and take it. So we did. You know, I don't know, we could have taken it and put it in a little side thing, but I just deposited it in because I thought that was the honest thing to do.
Yeah.
It was.
So when I stated that it still is the case that there was money unaccounted for because they don't tie back to bag sales. If
Right.
we have $1,600 of funny money that the Guilford Country Store just gave us,
It's
great.
not.
But it is money that's unaccounted for that does not tie back to bag sales. And that was the clarification that I made after I had originally said that there was missing money, and I clarified that and said it's actually more money than what we have. And yes, more money is still essentially unaccounted for. So,
And then in number 3, I was unsure because it says what we would have made with straight .125 gallon charges. Add 5375 to last year's expense for bag purchases, and total expenses would have been, and then it's got the arrow over there. So I wanted to clarify that if we had sold the bags at those rates, yes, that's what we would have brought in, but we didn't, so we didn't.
That was really there so that they could figure out what to charge
What's
going
next?
forward.
And my last thing was that it is still my belief that we started the pay. I know we bought bags from solid waste at the very beginning, but when we started the pay as you throw, because you mentioned this, Chris, when we started the pay as you throw fund, we had zero in it. We had no money in it.
Right, but you had free
But wait.
product. Go ahead.
Okay, but then we had to buy large bags because our inventory went down. And so in August, we had to spend $6,000 that we didn't have. It
So-
didn't come out of solid waste, it came out of the pay-as-you-throw fund, so we're trying to recoup that. As we sell bags,
So what
we'll
happened
recoup
to the
it.
funds from the original large bags that were sold? There wasn't anything.
We went through,
went
and
through
we
every
went,
bit of it.
every bit of it, and there was nothing to carry over into pay-as-you-throw. And
But
that was
so
because,
that's an issue.
well, that was because we had originally the original startup, which we had to take into account, because we had to buy small bag, large bags, and, we gave free bags away and everything. So when we went through and figured out all of our sales and all of our income, we had to take into account those expenses. So we didn't have any money to carry over from solid waste. Actually, solid waste lost out.
But
We
but
didn't-
none of
we had a
that,
zero
but none
balance.
of that original purchase came out of the town's money. So that's all free money, which is where you're losing me. And
But you
I'm-
realize there's the other expenses that come out. There's the, refuse collection, there's the tipping fee that comes out.
Correct. And this program needs to be, legally needs to be self-sufficient.
Correct.
So if we were getting to a point where it's not self-sufficient, and it's not just a little out of whack, I mean, we're way out of whack on this.
Right, I understand that. But I
This problem should have been corrected much, much sooner than it was, because we were essentially handed a freebie. Here's your stuff, good luck to you. And we
but I
didn't.
don't think you're understanding.
I am understanding. My whole life revolves around inventory. I am 100% understanding you. And if somebody brought me in a fully stocked pantry and said, here you go, I'm not paying any of your other bills. You have to pay your bills, but I'm going to stock your restaurant.
But that's not what happened.
You weren't given all of the bags and everything. Yes, you had to pay the tipping fees and all of
We
that.
paid, when they asked me to figure out what the expenses that came out of solid waste were for the pay-as-you-throw, and what the income was, I had to take into account the bags we bought, because they did not belong, they were not part of solid waste. We never had startup money to buy those original ones, so
But you didn't have to buy them. Somebody else bought them.
solid waste, they
Gave them.
didn't give them to us, so we paid for them out of
But-
solid waste fund, but we depleted the solid waste fund really low.
But then that all transferred over to the pay-as-you-throw program, correct?
Not to all the solid waste money, no, because some of that
But-
is other
but-
money.
But the product transferred over, the bags.
But so did the expense of the bags.
But those bags were already purchased.
But I can't know how to explain this to you, other than to say, I was asked, figure out what your total pay-as-you-throw expenses were, and your total income. And when I did that, I had to take into account the purchase of the bags, because that was part of pay-as-you-throw, should not have come out of solid waste. So when I did that, we had no money to bring over to pay-as-you-throw when we started the pay-as-you-throw fund.
But you had the product.
But you have to sell the product. We were still selling it when we started the pay-as-you-throw fund at zero. You have to sell it in order to get the money in there.
Well, I understand
It's
that, but
sitting there, yeah,
but
and
you
we
had
can sell
free
it.
inventory, right? And I'm saying free because it's in pay-as-you-throw, and pay-as-you-throw didn't pay for it. So you have that product to sell. As you sell, you generate revenue, and if the cost of those bags was not figured out appropriately in the beginning to cover that, I mean, part of being self-sufficient would be that you're bringing in enough to buy new product. That's how it works.
I understand.
But somewhere this ball got dropped, and I'm not pointing my finger at either of you. I'm saying that somewhere somebody made a huge mistake with this program.
When they-
I guess I have a question real quick.
Okay.
Because you said when the pay-as-you-throw program started at $0 in the bank
Correct.
account, but we started with all this inventory that was paid for by the solid waste program.
Correct.
Okay, so we have $0 here and we have $20,000 worth of inventory here, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. You said when we had to buy the next set of large bags
Right.
is when we discovered we didn't have enough money in the pay-as-you-throw
No.
to pay for that next
Right,
set of
because
large
we
bags.
started the pay-as-you-throw fund July 1st, and we bought bags in August. We didn't sell $6,000 worth of bags from July 1st to August 16th, I think it was.
So why did we have to buy more if we hadn't sold what we had?
But we had a lot of small ones left over, but we sold we had to buy big ones.
So I guess that's where I get kind of lost, is if I start at zero and I have all this inventory to sell from, and this inventory should, as I sell a roll of bags, I should be able to replace that roll of bags with the income from that.
No, because you have to take into account that we're also paying the refuse collection and the tipping
Right,
fee.
but that all has to be in there.
But it all has to
In
be
order
in
for
the
this
price of the
program to
bag.
be self-sustainable, you have to cover the
Right,
cost of the
I know.
bags, plus the refuse, plus the tip. All of that has to come out of the cost of the bag.
Can I ask
And
a
it's
question?
not somewhere.
We're gonna go around the board first, Kevin.
So the money that we collected before July 1st,
Before we split it,
before we split
Yeah.
it, where did that money go?
we actually, because of the way that the whole thing was started to begin with, we actually spent more money than what we brought in for pay-as-you-throw, because we used solid waste money to buy stuff.
So when I bought a roll of bags for X amount of money,
Yeah.
did that go back into solid waste and you just take out the refuse, or did that go into another fund?
We went into solid waste. That's the way
So we
Michael
paid
Kudemarsh
back
set it
into
up.
Solid waste, so that's what happened to our inventory income, it went back into
Right.
solid waste. Okay.
And then we went through
So
and we
that's
did
why-
the spreadsheets for it. And they said, take into account all your expenses, pay-as-you-throw, all of your income. And we did, and we had nothing to start the pay-as-you-throw fund with. And which, if we didn't have to buy bags right off, we would have had.
Did we actually write a check for bags from the solid waste
the
fund? In the very
In the-
beginning,
yes,
the
yes.
first set, we wrote a
Yes.
check for
Yes,
$20,000 or whatever,
Yeah,
and we got our
we-
2 pallets
we-
of bags.
we got our small, large, and our large bags, yes.
And you
Okay.
got the
And then we
tubs.
gave away free bags, so we didn't get any income for those bags we gave away. We gave everybody a free bag that had lived in Vernon.
Yeah.
So we didn't make money there either. So we had a very nice solid waste fund before. It never should have been put together. But that's what happened. And then when we realized that wasn't working, then we went to the townspeople and we asked to separate them into 2 funds so that we could do that. And I really truly believe we would not be where we are now if we had, at the time we set the fund up, asked the people if we could have a little startup money. That's what I really think that's what we needed to do. And we didn't. We set up the fund, but we didn't
Because
think
all the
about
money
doing
we
that.
generated had gone back into
Right.
solid waste.
Which was stupid, because then how are you
Okay.
gonna do anything?
Hindsight's so good.
So essentially, this program has been in the red from day one.
Yeah, essentially, if it wasn't for solid waste. And I don't know why it was set up that way. I do know that that's what was done, and then it wasn't working because we were our solid waste fund's going down the tubes really fast. And that's when they decided to split it.
Okay, so that makes more sense to me, that for some reason we were allocating pay-as-you-throw dollars to the solid waste fund instead of the pay-as-you-throw.
Yeah, we should, when we started the whole thing, we should have set up a pay-as-you-throw fund right off, put a little startup money in it, and it would have worked.
Yeah, which we probably even really didn't need to put a little startup money into it, because if we paid for all the bags out of solid waste.
But we shouldn't have.
If we did.
Yeah,
Well,
if we did.
We did, and if we started from our first mistake and started reimbursing the pay-as-you-throw program
Yeah.
with that revenue,
Yeah.
we wouldn't be in this
Right.
problem either. But
But
instead, we reimbursed a
it took
different
a couple
account.
years for us to realize that this was an issue.
And that was the entire missing piece to this whole thing.
Yeah.
That has been blown out of proportion and has caused arguments. And
We just
that
need to
one
go forward.
missing piece would have saved an awful lot of headache for the
Well,
board.
not
and-
really,
and
because
for
we still have a
people.
problem.
We do still have a problem, but if we've spent a lot of time going back and forth on, we started here, it went over here, and why isn't it adding up? And that was the one piece that we needed, was that the money went back into the wrong account.
You'd ask, you could have told you.
If we knew to ask,
We know everything.
yeah, Kevin,
Eyes up.
he was
I'd also,
first.
when this whole thing started, I was involved with that. I can't remember when we bought the first set of bags. Chris, you're talking, you know, if somebody gave you a fully stocked pantry, but if somebody gave you a pantry with maybe like 10 cans of beans and a couple of things of soup, you know, you're gonna start off and then you have to restock the pantry. You're gonna have to spend that money. I don't remember what we had for large bags when we first started this whole thing. I remember pallets of small bags, and they were, you know, 50 cases per pallet. And at one point in time, we had like 3 pallets, 3.5 pallets of small bags. But large bags, all of a sudden you go over there, and they're like 10 on a pallet, and that was it. So I'm not sure the exact number of when we had to buy that first series of bags.
Right, and
But-
none of that matters now that we know
Right.
that the money was dropped back into solid waste as
Right.
opposed to the pay-as-you-throw.
Right.
But,
And also another thing that needs to be taken into account from here on, Gene, you remember that one case that had a bunch of cut bags in it?
Yeah.
There are like 5 rolls of large trash bags up in the maintenance office. And, yeah, they were cut. And I don't know how many, you know, how many torn bags are returned and stuff like that. So you may want to think about building something in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Just-
those things should have probably been returned to the manufacturer and credited.
Yeah.
Or got us replacements due to their own mistake. Or B, figured into accounting as loss.
Well, we did have some loss too, because the manufacturer double printed some rolls. So we were selling 2 rolls worth with
we split them up.
1 roll.
We split them.
Right, but a couple of them went out the
A couple
door.
went out the door before they
But we don't
realized,
have
but
any
as soon as we
count.
did, we took the bags apart and split them up.
There were,
There was
There was
10
10
rolls
rolls
instead
instead
of,
of
10
10
bags
bags.
instead of 5.
I'm pretty sure I got one of those.
Guilford store found a whole bunch. Tim found a whole bunch. And didn't we find some?
We
need to figure out our
I mean, you
loss
could
rate
kind
as
of,
well.
But-
Yeah, we need to understand what our loss rate is, and we need to call out the manufacturer when we have
But
a
we may have
problem.
actually gained on that, because we just found these bags, and if they charged us for 5, and we ended up with 10, we can now sell 2 rolls.
Yeah. That's true as well.
So, but I did want to tell you, I took your recommendation. Everybody is doing the same sheets that they turn into me.
That'll be so much nicer for
Everybody's
you.
doing their inventory. Tim and I are going over at the end of every month, and we're counting what we've got, counting what everybody has, and so far, everything's coming out right on.
Good deal.
Patty had her hand up.
Yes.
yeah, no, it's okay. I was just gonna give you a little bit of a history, how we got where we are. But
I love history, let's have it.
As you can see by my age, I have a lot of history. But when the plant was closed and we needed to cut budgets, the state had already passed a law saying the following year you had to go to pay-as-you-throw. So we put together a committee, and it was actually the committee, along with Triple T, that did the research on, you know, how many bags were going out in trash and all of that, and what the size of the bags were, because I know myself, I always did the little white bags, but then when we went to pay-as-you-throw, I did the bigger bag because I could stuff a couple little bags into the big bag, and it was really cheaper that way to buy it that way. And that's what happened to a lot of townspeople as we started to adjust. The second thing that happened that no one really expected, because we were a town that recycled a lot before pay-as-you-throw. So we thought that, you know, it was all going to kind of even out. Well, once people had to start paying for their trash bags, the recycling just grew and grew and grew. So that was another problem. So there was the issue with the bags, and, you know, trying to figure out from nothing what the usage is going to be. And like I said, it was all a volunteer committee. They weren't doing a really good job of keeping inventory. And So, you know, it's a lot of that happened. It's not, I really think that the problem started a long time ago. I don't think it's something that started just recently.
It sounds like it started from day one.
Yeah, it did. But, you know, I don't think we're the only town that has dealt with this because none of the towns knew how to deal with pay-as-you-throw, so.
So the only thing that, and I think we've beat this one to death too, and we need to move on, but the only thing that I would ask is if, when you're doing your accounting that we have in your inventory, that we pay attention to the loss rate as well.
Oh, yes.
And if we have manufacturer problems,
Yeah.
it needs to be brought to the
And I've discussed
manufacturer.
with each, I went and talked to each place that sells and explained how that works, and if there's a problem, they need to let me know. There's a comment section on it that says, like if Tim, because sometimes Tim's had people come in and say, my bag fell apart when I opened it, so he's given them another bag. So I said, you have to tell me that when you do that, Tim.
Yeah, like the 5 or 6 rolls that are in the maintenance garage.
Yeah,
I don't care the last time we ordered, we should call the manufacturer tomorrow and say, I have 6 rolls of ripped bags that need to be credited
Okay.
to our account, or you need to send us replacement rolls, one way or the other.
right,
But we shouldn't have to bear their burden of their screw up,
right.
so. Okay. Very good. I think we're all set. Conflict of interest policy, select board rules and agreement, so made some changes to this last time, we were talking about it. And how did we end up?
Isn't it sweet like that? I know.
We ended up with a long,
Huh?
we ended up with a long policy.
Yeah, I
Oh, I forgot
like,
to reprint
I
this
like
without
this
number
one
5.
That's the.
Dirty little what?
So what has the,
So what did you do with, you left the lines in here, right?
Yes, so that you could see what your suggested changes to the VLCT models are the
Yes.
lines.
oh, that's not striking them, that's just, or it is striking them.
It's straight.
That,
This isn't a copy.
it's the
that we're gonna
option
sign
to
on.
strike them.
yes, it's an option, that's what was there, but rather than Jeff just saying, oh, this is what I want, he went through what.
Actually, I did say that, but.
You did say
So,
that?
I just struck it out of the model policy so you could see what was there.
Okay, that's how I put that.
And this is the current policy.
Yes, I think we should continue with that. I like it.
Although, I like Article 8A.
Article 8A,
I really like that.
oh, you like it?
I do. Because there's
I do
sometimes
too,
that,
yes.
you know, in ours it's saying they have to remove themselves from the meeting. But, you know, I like the way 8A clarifies that.
It gives another
It
option.
gives them
I
the
like
option,
that too.
yeah, because, you know, sometimes we need their input.
So essentially,
Our
this,
town policy actually reads the same.
this policy is more well, it's very closely aligned with VLTC's suggested conflict of interest policy. And I think we felt that it deserved its very own standalone policy for us to sign, not incorporated into the select board rules.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's,
yeah, because it's complex.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
it is.
So, the things that are stricken, I don't think they should be stricken.
I'm sorry, did these 2 documents change at all?
Yes, but I actually need to reprint out the agreement because I did take out number 5.
That was
I thought
that
2 weeks
is
ago,
my
I
error.
suggested just plain delete number 5 out.
Yeah.
And the only, I mean, you had some edits to the rules last time.
So Jean, it was struck out, you just prefer to keep it in there?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I do.
That's fine.
Because there is implications there that I think could really happen.
Yeah, I guess my consideration is trying to just stick more closely to a financial conflict of interest and not, I guess the personal conflict of interest arises basically in a non-financial way. I don't quite feel as strongly about that as the
Yeah.
finances, but there's no problem with leaving it in there either. Some of it gets, like anything, it's open to interpretation.
It is, and like the part that Sandy pointed out with under Article 8A, leaves a little opening there, so even if you thought it fell under any of those things that are stricken right now, you could kind of address it and say, no, I can be objective about this, and there is not really a personal gain for me or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
even though I am associated with
I mean,
such and such.
essentially, in the end, we're all on our honor.
Yeah, so.
Right.
And there's, you know, if the individual feels strongly, hey, there's no conflict of interest, there's not really any repercussions other than a public, I don't know, dressing down, so to speak. So, yeah, I'm fine with
Chris, your
putting everything back in.
Chris, your thoughts?
Good.
Okay. Sandy? Okay, I'm gonna be the one that has a thought. This whole document means absolutely nothing because of 8A.
Yes.
You can tear it up, you can burn it, you can throw it away because it has no value. This whole document has no value whatsoever because of 8A. If I can say to you as a select board, and it is an honor box thing, 100%, that I don't have a personal conflict and I don't have a financial conflict, then none of this matters. And that will happen every single time that we have a conflict, because Jean's a perfect example of a personal and or financial conflict. If she just says, nope, I don't have a personal or financial conflict, I can stay in this room, and there's nothing. This means nothing.
Well, that's not really what that says, though. That's
I
not
mean-
saying that you are saying that, it doesn't let you off the hook for not having
Sure
a
does.
conflict. It says that you has an actual or perceived conflict of interest, but believes that she's able to act fairly, objectively, and in the public interest, in spite of the conflict. So it's not denying the potential conflict, but it's giving the person a chance to say.
Who's
that
not
I-
gonna take that out?
Who's not gonna take that out?
Who's not gonna say that they can do all those things? If there's a conflict that arises,
I can.
if we're to, I don't agree with you. I don't agree that any person ever can do that when it comes to their paycheck. If your paycheck is on the line, you will, because I sure as heck would, say, I absolutely can act fairly and honestly, and so I'm gonna, stay in this room and I'm gonna express my opinion.
Well, then I think somebody needs to tell the LTC that their sample isn't any good.
I don't have a problem doing that.
You know, there have been a number of other towns that have adopted a very similar.
I just say, don't have one.
I mean,
Failure of an
No.
appointment.
If you're not, I mean, these documents never existed up until 2017. The select board operated without any of this.
No, this is
No, we
1990.
We hit this.
The conflict of interest policy, just the basic for across the whole town. Yes, we did have that.
Read 8B.
I do think that there is times that, despite the conflict, that person holds information that would be necessary to make an educated decision. I don't, however, think that that person should be able to vote on that.
I totally agree with that.
But I think that there is certainly certain cases where that person should and is entitled to stay in the room, should we have questions. We can't get the answers, by asking them to stand outside.
And I'm not suggesting that, I mean, we turned that around at the last meeting, about the standing outside part of it. That we were all in agreement, well, the majority was in agreement that was okay. We made those changes to the select board rules. What I am disputing is this conflict of interest policy has no value.
If I'm gonna sign this thing, I am gonna follow it very seriously.
Yeah.
And
So
I understand
I
that,
don't see any
but
reason not to. I mean, yeah, it's, again, VLTC, it's a sample directly, very closely out of their sample.
Yeah.
If I sign it, I'm gonna follow it.
I understand that.
And
but
if nobody
there's-
else wants to sign it, that's fine.
Yeah, and I understand that there are people of value that would do that, but I know when it comes to somebody's financial interest that you can absolutely
Which is why I'm saying
say-
that that person should not have a vote on the matter.
And, you know, my position is exactly, you made the exact point. I was the best person to answer questions for the day-to-day running of the library. That is not the trustee's responsibility. And they were put on the spot to answer those questions. So I would like to be available to give you the information that you're asking for. I would never vote, and I never do vote on anything to do with the library. But to have the best person available to give the best information, you guys were making decisions with, like, you didn't have the best information you could have had.
And that's been taken care of. That was taken care of last meeting, that you didn't have to be in the room. I'm disputing the conflict of interest. I mean, we can approve this as it is. It's a useless piece of paper that you can sign and
I'm not
move
sure
on with
where
our
you're
lives.
coming from, Josh, I'm really not.
I just explained it.
And I
You
understand
can
what
do
you're
anything
saying
you want.
with this piece of paper. I'm saying that, I'm saying that I agree with you that it is useless if we're going to allow Jean to sit here and persuade us on why we need to think and act a certain way, and then we give her the option to vote. You're right, this is useless.
Yeah.
But if there has to be something in here that, yes, they can be in here to inform us, they can be in here to weigh in,
And that's
but
not
they
my issue.
cannot vote.
That's not my issue.
Then what is your issue?
My issue is that this is a moot point. This whole policy is a moot point. There's no need to even have it, because you can do whatever you want. In the end, you can do whatever you want with this policy. There is no such thing as a conflict of interest, because if I say to you guys that I do not have a personal or a financial conflict of interest that is going to affect me in any way, shape, or form, then I can stay in here and be my persuasive self and possibly win a vote in my favor. Regardless of whether I can vote or not, I can still do that. I can still be a persuasive person because I don't feel like that I have a conflict of interest. Or I can just simply tell you, I don't have a conflict of interest.
But that's not really what that says. It says that you admit
That's
that
exactly
there
what it
is.
says, Gene. Nobody's gonna convince me of anything any different. You know me.
Well,
I-
read the words on the
I
paper.
did read the words. So, and I'll restate what I said. Let's pass the thing because I don't want to talk about it, because it doesn't matter. We'll sign it and we'll be done with it because it has no value, one way or the other.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the policy regarding conflicts of interest and ethical conduct with the redactions taken out.
With them taken out.
No, undo the lines.
Okay.
We will keep all
She
of
wanted
those
them
lines.
in.
Yeah, I mean,
That's-
keep them in.
that's
Take
what
them,
What?
erase the lines.
Okay.
Just take all the lines.
Erase the lines.
Erase the lines.
Erase the lines.
Use the VLCT
Okay, I would
policy
like
as
to
is.
point out what's in the lines and what I talked to Jeff about. This includes groups. So, I'm in the Rotary and they come in here and they ask for funding. Not only can I not vote on it, I can't talk about it.
No,
Right,
you
that's
can,
conflict.
because you can say,
Well,
I don't have a conflict because,
I can, but it's including, this is getting very, very strict in here. It's talking about groups, if you have close associations, if your church, you know, your library, you're really, you know, your neighbor now. It's a lot more broad than your old one. I just want you all to be aware, that's what those reject.
but in the end, it doesn't
Lines are-
matter. Because
I
you
know that,
can,
I'm just
because you
clarifying
can
what the
state,
lines are.
I do not have a conflict of interest or
Well, then at that
personal
point,
conflict."
who do you get the information from, Josh? Like, I understand what you're saying, but if that person has the best information that we need to make an educated decision, who is this supposed to come from? Just like she's saying, you've got the trustees sitting here that don't do the day-to-day.
Chris, you're completely misunderstanding.
I'm not misunderstanding what you're saying. You're saying that this is useless because anybody can come in here and say that this is not a conflict of interest.
And provide you the information that you're talking about.
So who else would you get that information from?
No, what I'm saying is that there is no need for a conflict of interest policy.
But I'm saying that
Because
there
you-
is
because
a need
anybody
of
can
it
come in
because,
here and
but
speak
there
about
needs to be something in there that says that Gene cannot vote on that topic.
Okay, so then the conflict of interest policy should be very short and say, if you have a conflict of interest, you cannot vote. A personal or financial conflict of interest, you should not vote. Because the rest of it's jargon.
Under Article 5, Number 1, a public officer shall not participate in any official act or action if he or she has a conflict of interest, whether real or perceived. So she couldn't take action on it. She couldn't go over there and say, you have to do
Which
it
is-
my way.
Exactly, I don't vote.
So
don't vote.
so it is saying she couldn't vote.
Okay.
Yeah, and that part of it, I'm not disputing either. I'm just saying that it has, we're signing a piece of paper that has no substance.
Well,
Outside of keeping a conflicted person from voting, and then I can take you to court about this because I said I'm not a conflicted person, so I should still be able to vote. Because in 8A, it tells me that I can tell you that I'm not a conflicted person. So then that completely negates me not being able to vote because I'm no longer a conflicted person, so I can vote.
well, I think it should be fairly obvious if you're connected financially.
Yeah.
I don't think that's
Which is
gray
what,
area.
which is what our previous conflict of interest policy had in it.
And what this does say, I think what Josh is getting at, is that if you get an unscrupulous select board member that sits there and says, I can act impartially, it doesn't matter what anybody says. According to this policy, they can still vote, they
They
can
can
take
vote,
part in
they
it,
can
they
do
can.
everything.
Then they probably never should have signed this thing to begin with.
And I'm not.
And I'm not
arguing
disputing that either,
right.
but she's exactly right.
That's what
That's
this says.
exactly what I've
Yeah,
been
yeah,
trying
it
to.
is.
It
You
doesn't
know, and
preclude
again,
anybody.
well,
That's
belabor the
exactly,
point,
that's
but
what I've exactly been trying
the
to get everybody
VLTC
to
needs to
understand.
just get rid of this.
I don't
you know.
disagree. I mean, it's a completely honor system, and my only point is that we don't even need to have this if it's an honor system.
I want it.
I understand
I
that.
want to sign this.
I understand
Because
that.
I will, if I sign something, I'm gonna
I
follow
get-
through.
And I get that,
Yeah.
and.
The other people
and
do
I-
not, that's fine.
And I am the same exact way.
Okay.
In that respect, but in the end, legally, it means nothing, and that was my point, that I been trying to get across for the last 10 minutes. If we have an unscrupulous select board member, which has happened everywhere across Vermont
The
and
only
across the
repercussion
country,
is they get voted out the next time they run.
and that's it. But we had provisions in place to do the same thing, and now we have a very wide swath of everything through this particular policy. And in the end, it really means nothing if you don't want to be the honor box system. And if it's an honor box, then why are we signing a piece of paper?
Same reason we do the member agreement.
But we've only been doing that since 2017, so.
I mean, in the assessment, we don't need to sign anything. Don't sign the confidentiality agreement, don't
Well,
sign the rules.
that's kind of what I'm getting at,
Yeah.
is it's all an honor box in the end anyway.
Yeah.
So why are we even going through all this?
Let's see,
I mean,
I don't know.
we set up all this to keep personal and financial conflicts from happening. We have effectively, by accepting this, allowed it to happen again.
Sandy, did you have a motion on the floor?
I did, and it's been seconded.
Okay.
So we did have a policy that effectively did everything that we needed it to do. By accepting this, we will reverse that policy and allow anyone to do whatever they want going forward. That's my only point. And it doesn't matter to me because it is what it is. I will hope that in the future, we don't have a select board member that will use this to their advantage. And that's it. But there will be at some point.
I guess I'm not quite certain how this one page
No, it
is
was,
any more functional than
it was our select board agreement that kept,
in the rules.
correct. And we've effectively erased all those rules to accept this.
It's redundant to have it in the rules and it has a separate policy.
But it's different. We've essentially changed the rules of how you can engage by deleting a couple of the rules and a couple of things and establishing this as our new policy. That's all I'm saying. Like I said, it really means nothing to me personally in the end because it holds no weight, it holds no value.
I request we hold a vote on it.
Yeah.
But we don't have a
Unless there's
final,
further
so,
discussion.
so can we not vote on the draft? Because we're putting all of the redacted stuff back in, right? That was the motion?
Well, we're not gonna sign what we've got in front of us tonight anyway.
No, exactly, so if you wanna hold off, or we, yeah,
Well,
you
we
can
have
vote
to-
on it and
We have
sign
to
it.
approve that that's what we want. So we do have to
You-
approve.
I mean, you can, and then you just have a final.
Oh, you mean-
to sign.
Yeah.
Vote when you have the final?
Yeah, vote when you have the final, because then you'll sign it and date it that day, and it'll match the
Okay.
minutes that approved it that same day.
Got it.
It's just neater that way.
Yes,
You
it
could do
is.
it this way and sign it the next
No,
meeting.
I get it. I
You
get
could come in and sign it.
Hmm?
You could come in and sign it.
You could do that too.
So you wanna retract your motion? Or do we wanna approve it and then sign it later?
With the amendments.
Yeah.
What do you wanna do? It's your motion.
I want to accept it and with the signing at our next meeting. Okay?
Jean, you seconded it,
Second.
right? Okay. So moved and seconded to sign the updated conflict of interest policy, select board rules, and select board agreement. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Public participation on non-agenda items.
Do we wanna do the rules too, or confidential agreement, or we gonna skip those two?
Oh, I thought we were done with those. I thought we made our corrections to those at the last meetings.
Is there more? Well, I need to take number 5 out, I understand that, but is there anything else?
Yeah, on the rules, I think I told you under Rule 15, you need to reference, rather than Rule 17, it's Rule 16.
Yes, I did, I just, because I don't like getting edited stuff, I got yelled at once for doing that,
Okay.
so that's good.
Don't run the risk again. All right,
So did we approve all 3 with the edits in your motion, or did you just, was it just the conflict of interest?
It was a conflict of interest, but I will make a motion that we approve the select board rules and the select board member agreement with the edits.
second.
Moved and seconded to accept the select board rules and the select board agreement as edited. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right,
Public participation, non-agenda items. Seeing none. Correspondence and admin report, please.
Josh, I'm pretty sure he was motioning for you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was on the agenda. I'm from the Bob Area Prevention Coalition. We're just gonna briefly talk about the prevention primer that we got.
No, you were not on the agenda, but you can jump on
Great,
public
jump on.
participation on non-agenda items.
Thank you kindly.
Come on over.
It used to be a newspaper reporter. I should have checked. I thought I had a communication that I was on, so that was my misunderstanding.
I think I have you on for the next meeting, because I had the auditors on tonight, and
Okay, my email, I thought it said the second, but at any rate, if tonight is an okay night, you
Let's
guys
do
have
it.
already had
You're
a
here.
long night.
Yeah, well, so have you, because you've been sitting here through it, so
All right, thank you
do
kindly.
your thing.
First of all, we worked with London Regional to rate these. Thank you kindly.
You guys want
Is that it?
one more?
One more?
Yep. Nope. One more is his.
Okay.
Got it.
Thanks. And I will not take you through all of these slides, which I'm.
Thank you.
Yep. Thought that might be the reaction, but I will pass these around. I don't have enough beyond U5, but I can give Michelle this later. So the short version is that this primer has within it
That's one.
examples of both
That's one.
non-regulatory and regulatory things that can be done at the town level to increase the health of people in the town. And as you see on this first page of the slides, this is just from the Brattleboro April 1st to the weekend edition of the Reformer. It just shows, if you look all the way, I don't know why they set this up with 2019 all the way to the left. That's not standard, but sure enough they did. Anyways, the premature death, which is caused by a lot of different things, not just substances, which is our primary focus, it's significantly higher than for the state. And so that's what motivates us. So we're the people who like set up collection boxes for opioids, unused opioids, or you can get those in places. We also do like we host responsible retailer training so that people, know how to card appropriately, how to, and like for alcohol and bars and things like that. Just yesterday, I was at actually Vernon at the school, working with kids on Julian, because if you look at the second slide, that teen use of e-cigarettes. So I'm assuming, I don't know, have you guys all heard about Juuls? Because actually, when I go into the classrooms, what I do is I actually ask kids, I don't just lecture them, I say, hey, how many of you know what a Juul is? They all knew what a Juul was. I said, have you seen any of these ads? They'd seen the ads.
Yeah.
And so these products, for those of you who don't know, they look, I said, oh yeah, what does it look like? They said, oh, it looks like a thumb drive.
Yeah.
So they're getting these ads to our kids. And so if you go online, you can find like the Views ad. It looks like a gosh darn Skittles ad. I mean, it looks like a candy ad.
Yeah.
So at any rate, so we go in and we educate them that they're the target of some of this advertising, and that, okay, it tastes like candy. How much nicotine, we ask them, is in a single little pod? Turns out it's 20 cigarettes worth of nicotine is in a single little thumb drive. So at any rate, so we do education with the kids as well. So, but the purpose of this, as I say, has both examples of regulatory and non-regulatory things that can be done at the town level. The other thing, I wear two hats. I also work for an organization called Prevention Works Vermont, and if we go to slide 8, we've made a new clearinghouse, so you can find examples of municipal policies, and on that screenshot there you can see that we've got like marijuana policies from other towns in Vermont, policies for healthy public spaces, smoking and vaping, all these types of things. So you can go there and find examples of things that other towns have already done. As you also are probably aware,
some of the language for marijuana right now is that towns are going to be, you guys are talking about like, town rights versus being a creature of the state and all that. So currently, some of the language is that you will have, it'll be an opt-out. So, no, sorry, it's an opt, I always get those switched. Basically, it's not an automatic opt-out. If you don't want to have retailers in your town, like the town of Weathersfield actually preemptively banned marijuana retail. But one of the bills is, as it's written, is currently saying, no, you have to actively opt out. It's legal in your town unless you opt out, right? So you have to go through the efforts to do that. So as I say, if you look on that slide 8, if you go to that prevention works, you can find examples of towns that have done these kinds of things. Another example that's in there, I'll skip to Vernon as well. Currently, you guys have, we do this, it's almost silly, right, to have a graphic saying that you don't have anything. But like, there's some towns have many retailers right next to the school, for example. So like, what I'm trying to say is that there are some of these larger convenience stores that can just pop up because they're not so big, so Act 250 doesn't come into play, and they can just show up really close to a school. And we know that some of these places have all the advertising, like they set it at counter level, like at kid level, for example. And that can pop up like next to your school. So it's just, we're not saying, by the way, we're not saying you should do this, you should do that. What we want to be is a resource. If you tell us, we're not concerned about that, that's fine. Anything that you are concerned about, we can do research on. We can maybe try to find other funds for like collection boxes. Just tell us what you're interested in, and we're glad to work with you is the bottom line. That's the short version.
Very good.
All right, thanks.
And are you one of these people listed on the back?
I am Rolf Parker.
You look super familiar. I don't know why.
I wear a lot of hats, but I don't know.
Board, do you have any questions for this gentleman who waited so patiently throughout this evening? Okay, great.
Okay, thank you very much.
I appreciate you waiting it out. And thanks for the stuff that you're doing at the school. I got 2 little girls at that school.
They were great.
Hopefully you taught them something.
Well, ask them.
I will,
if they were in 5th or 6th grade.
I'm gonna
then they
start
saw 'em.
smoking all their USB ports just to make
You
sure
know
they're not real.
what's going on. Oh, God.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was pretty interesting.
Oh, did I use up my time by walking away from the table?
What do you need?
Well, there's one policy that we're interested in, especially just showcasing. It is in the primer, but it's the Brattleboro. We kind of think of it as low-hanging fruit. Let's see if I can find it here. It's on page 20 in the primer. So, a lot of towns, it's pretty standard, someone all they got to do to get their license, their liquor license, is simply pay the fee, and that's pretty much it, right? So we just think that Brattleboro's policy is just something maybe worth considering. The licensee has to be present at the select board meeting, so they can't just send a representative. And they have to provide information on whether they've had a prior license, because you might want to know if they ran afoul somewhere else. Like if they're really an egregious example, it might be worth knowing. Am I just repeating old news?
Process very well.
Okay. So that's all. We just think that it was a good one, but I'd love to hear more about that at some other time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
are you looking for support on
We're looking to be
this
helpful.
initiative, or?
We're looking to be helpful in any way. So what we're thinking is that these are examples, these policies are examples that you can consider. And also that we'll go out and research anything you want us to research, that is related to helping the health of your community.
Oh, so if we wanted to, okay, perfect. So if there's an ordinance coming up that the select board's interested in, we can reach out to you.
Yep.
Love it.
And yeah, exactly. And also
Great.
there's that database to look at, to check out other towns to see what they're doing.
Perfect. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. Thank you very much.
All right, town admin report and correspondence.
You guys have kept me pretty busy. I don't have anything extra to talk about in the admin report this week. It's pretty much all there in this packet. And all of your correspondence is in here too.
Okay. All of the auditor reports, if you can, everything that has to do with auditors, put them in this pile, please.
Or leave them at your place. Oh,
Yeah.
no, they might get moved around.
I have a pile right here, started.
Why, you don't want us to
Please.
keep them?
You have them in a really nice binded fashion.
You
We
should.
got a binder book, like our town plan, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago?
Right before town meeting, I think.
Yeah.
Really?
You should
Yes, you
have
do. We killed a bunch of trees copying it
And I
again
just don't
for
wanna
this
copy
meeting.
them over, so if they're left in the room, if you need another copy, of course I'll make you one. It was a wire bound.
Huh?
You really do, I promise.
No, because you know what I did? I printed this myself.
I think I had
This
five
is
of
what
them.
I
Didn't
had-
I give out 5 of them?
You
I
did
have
give them out, yes.
Right here, when they gave us the nice final ones.
I have them in my trunk in my select board thing.
You took them all.
If Sandy says she doesn't
I have
have
one.
one, I'm with her.
Yeah,
Okay.
everything is in my bag and does not include that. I
could've
printed
swore
this
that I handed
myself,
those
but I
out.
had it.
A light blue, it had like a light blue cover on it.
Wow.
Yeah, but spiral, yeah.
You guys probably stole it from her office. Where you were pestering her, not letting her work. The rest of us, we're constantly doing stuff all day. We don't have time to bother Michelle, so.
Excuse me, I'm pretty sure you were in here today.
I was just
That
saying,
is true.
Sandy is the only one that did not come to my office today.
And I was only here for a meeting.
I was just here for Tim's candy.
All right, next regular meeting is April 16th. We are adjourned.